So today we're going to have a look at the incredible work that the Ministry of Equality, Employment, Culture and Tourism, alongside the Supporting Youth and Disability Office, has been doing this year to ensure that we are supporting families across Gibraltar. I head an association called Tribe in the UK. I myself am a social scientist and I work with human development. And I also look at the shifts in societal norms. Tribe works with local authorities, we work with companies, and we work a lot around employability factors. Now, part of our family is Support Youth UK, and we look at how we support people who face adversity, no matter what that adversity looks like. Now, this year, on the back of meeting Jenny in the UK, we started to talk about what attachment means when we're looking at people who are neurodiverse or who may suffer disabilities. Now, attachment is the way that we form our bonds, the way that we form how we feel about the world at very young ages. Now, what we wanted to be able to do is recognizing that families who are supporting young people with complex needs means that they are under more duress and they do face more adversity. You are more likely to have an attachment disorder if you are neurodiverse, because actually the way that you process the world, how you feel safe in the world, and the way that we then process our relationships with our carers and our wider family can have a real effect on how we then develop. We decided that we would write an attachment guide for parents. We felt that it was really essential that if parents understood how attachment develops in very early years, we can actually put in some really clear strategies and pathways to be able to support the next generation. Right. So, I want to talk about attachment in a slightly different frame, in the fact that attachment and attachment disorder is covered by the Disability Act within education, and can have some life-limiting implications for people who do develop an attachment disorder. Now, attachment disorders, if you think about how a brain is physically shaping between the ages of being born, some people do believe it's actually slightly pre, and we do have some in vitro work as well. But looking at how between we are born and then we are 3 years old, our brain is actually forming. It's actually setting its pathways, it's actually setting how it works. Now, if a child faces adversity within that time, that brain chemicals actually begin to shape the way that the brain forms. Now, once that is set, that does become a lifelong condition. It's not to say there aren't fantastic things that we can do to support young people. However, it does become a form of neurodiversity. There are some more complex and some wider societal issues that can be caused by this. And I wanted us to have a look at that today, because what Gibraltar is starting to do by supporting parents, and supporting parents whoever face adversity within the disability sphere and outside. So we've started training your professionals. We did a big body of training yesterday with your education side and with your social care side. So it's really being a way to enact change for the next generation. Now, globally, up to 25% of children have an attachment disorder or difficulty. And actually, that's a diagnosable condition. That is on the rise. If I was to go over that this morning, I think we would be here all morning. But there's a lot of different factors that actually as Tribe we are tracking. So the use of technology, for example, is changing the way that we form bonds within our very early years. An attachment difficulty can cause difficulty in the way that we form healthy relationships. It means that maybe our brain wasn't quite wired. It could well be that in very formative years, if we experience neglect, if there isn't enough food on the table, if we aren't warm, if we don't feel safe, all those Maslow law pieces, if they're not in place in those very early years, we can then develop an attachment disorder. Unfortunately, there are then the darker side of things when we are looking at abuse, trauma and neglect. They all feed into this problem. And globally, unfortunately, this is on the rise. It can be linked to physical and mental health challenges. And this is where we start realizing that there is a generational cycle within that. And what I'm very proud to say is that Gibraltar is looking at how we break that. How do we actually draw a line for the next generation? So if we said that actually we could minimize, we could reduce attachment disorders by 10% for this generation, that 10% then don't go on to enact that next generation. The next generation you could reduce by 20%. And I honestly believe the work that we're doing here at the moment, Gibraltar really could lead the way globally on how we do that. 53.6 is a very precise, of people in prison have an attachment disorder. By that we can see that this really does breed a social disorder. It breeds more violence. It breeds, unfortunately, more domestic violence. We really do need to get a handle on this. 70% of people will have experienced trauma or neglect who are in prison. Health conditions and disparities in mortality. I don't feel as though my talk is very cheerful, but we will get to the better bit in a minute. I do apologise. If you imagine that a child's brain is wired for fight or flight because of their experiences, it means that actually as we go into adulthood, we're kind of on, yeah? That actually we're wired for fight or flight. Now, unfortunately, that can then have repercussions on our health because our body is running at a higher level all the time. Again, why it's very important that we address this. And if we look at that global inability to reach our full potential, and that's what we want for the next generation. We want people, no matter the adversity that they face, that they are able to succeed to their full capability. Right. Breaking the cycle. So as I said, if we could just reduce that amount by 10%. And the work that we're doing here, we're looking at empowering parents to better understand what happens between 0 and 3 years old. We know that we can't automatically save, we can't automatically stop violence in the home, for example, but we can break the cycle and stop it happening again. So if we have a look at reduction in violence, crime and antisocial behaviour, that is doable. If we look at increased life opportunities for all, it improves health and mental health across a lifespan, greater educational stability and achievement, increased economic productivity, and a stronger economy. Stronger social cohesion and a healthier family systems. There is nothing not to like on that list, and we do have the capability of doing it. Pathways to change. So we're already starting here. I think Gibraltar, you have been incredibly welcoming, but you are such an interesting society. And I think actually the way that you are a smaller society actually places you really strongly to be able to lead research and development within this area, which then could enact global change. So we've already started by training key professionals within your education and health, and looking really at how attachment works within that. We then need to have a look at greater understanding and support for parents. There are 2 words that I heard when I first started my attachment journey, and it just blew my mind. And that was, no matter what a child is facing, no matter that within your families you worry that you are facing adversity, and most of that adversity is completely out of your hands, if a child feels seen and heard, those things are actually quite different. That they feel seen within the world, they are recognized, they are acknowledged, but actually they are heard, that their wishes, their needs, their wants are heard. No matter the environment that you are in, that child is more likely to have a secure attachment. So actually what we hoped by writing this guide was that although we know some families are struggling, we know families can be really up against things, that actually there are some reasonably simple caring structures that we can put in place that really can help the next generation. Leadership and training, it's something that we take on within our employability work. A little bit like in schools where we teach trauma-informed practices as reasonably standard. Because what we recognise is that if we teach young people with trauma practice, when what that means is that we are rational as adults, we talk in clear, straight lines, we treat everybody with respect, and we do what we call co-regulate. Not just the children who need it, but all children succeed. Now, what we are trying to do in Tribe is get leadership in large organisations to recognise that if we managed and we worked and we supported people within our organisations with a look to attachment, look into how we play nicely together, again, everybody wins, whether we have an attachment disorder or not. And then we have a commitment to that learning and that research. We do need more research. We do need more research about those effective strategies that will work. As I said, right now, we know that there are things that are happening within families that us as researchers, as governments, we don't have the ability to go in and change. But actually, by working across multi-agencies, working with the police to have better understanding of trauma, actually, we can really enact change, but we do need some better research within this. Lead the change. It's been an absolute honour for me to work across Gibraltar this summer. I worked with families and professionals. The families themselves where there can be such shame, there can have such a feeling and not wanting to admit that maybe things are not going very well. We're very proud as parents. Their bravery in their stories, in sharing with me what they were truly up against, shaped every single chapter of this book, and I can't thank them enough. The book is available within the government website, so it's just for families. I really encourage professionals to look at it as well. So actually, if you were a police officer, if you're a youth worker, or if you're just interested in the wider society, what we wanted to do is make sure that it's not accusatory, that actually it's just about support and recognising we all face adversity at certain points in our lives. So every topic we talk about, there is an activity, there is a practical strategy that you can adopt. And I think some of you may find that very useful. This is my contact. I'm a researcher. So I'm really up for anybody's opinions. I'm up for anybody who would like to get in contact with me. And I would really like to thank Gibraltar for the opportunity of starting this with you. So thank you.
すいません。